It's our inaugural interview this semester. We got myself, John, we got Roberto, and we got Valerie with us from Sweet Trip, as well as a friend of mine, Jay. First off, thank you all for being able to make it here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We'll start out with some of the first questions. Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Well, I guess I'll go first. I'm Roberto. I play with Sweet Trip. Do a lot of guitar and I guess just programming all those Sweet Trip things.
Yeah, I'm Valerie, and I played with my vocals, and for live shows, I played guitar and keyboard, and I think that's it.
Excellent. For those who haven't heard of your work from Sweet Trip, how would you describe the sound of your music?
You want to take a stab, Valerie?
Well, I would call it shoegaze glitch, or if Aphex Twin and Heaven Shields had a child, then it would be like Sweet Trip.
Excellent.
But crazier, Heaven Shields and Heaven Shields.
More ear bleeding, I think, as well.
Well, it's always interesting how musicians describe their own music, because I hear some people try to go into the sonics of it, whereas other people like to describe the artists that maybe people would be familiar with. Moving on, how did Sweet Trip come to be, and how did you guys meet, and how did that instigate Sweet Trip?
Let's see. So we met after high school. Maybe like a year after I graduated from high school or something like that. We had Viet was our bass player in the beginning. And so I met him in high school actually at a sign up for a talent show, right at the end of my senior year. And unfortunately the talent show got canceled, but we struck a friendship and we started playing around, and eventually we met other people, and in that gang of people that we met Valerie and her sister Veronica, and we were all into more or less the same music, and we just started playing together. And I think at some point we just decided to, I guess, formalize what we were playing and kind of become a group and try to be a little more focused, just a little more focused.
Valerie, we can't hear you. I think your mic's muted. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I met Roberto and Viet right after high school, and it's just as he said, we had a common friend, and she went to high school with them, who also went to my high school, and I always wanted to play with people because at the time I had a guitar and I would play with these skaters, but I didn't really like the style of music that they would play so much. So then when I met Roberto and Viet, I got so happy because I liked their style. And then one day I showed up to bar. I went and that were there playing, and I just kind of jammed with them. And then I kept coming back. And then one day we used to write our own songs and then play every single one person's songs. But then that was too crazy, and then we do parties. But then eventually, because Roberto's the talented one, he would write all the songs, and that's how we just started playing his songs, and then became Sweet Trip.
Okay. So did you play any bands? So I guess you played, with a group of skaters. Is that what I heard right, Valerie?
Yeah.
And that was
in my school, there were people that I would play music with, but they liked to play thrash music or sometimes reggae style, and but what I could do with them was so limited, and I couldn't really show them what kind of stuff that I was playing because they weren't into it at all. So, but with Roberto and Viet, they were really good, and the stuff that they played were musical instead of just angst music.
So did you?
That was my experience playing with other people.
So did you play with other bands growing up in high school and stuff like that, Robbie?
No. Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
played.
that was it basically.
Yeah, exactly. I
Oh,
think I had a during high school. I had a friend who was also to playing the guitar, and we there was a summer where we were just like jamming the guitar together, playing Guns N' Roses tunes and things like that. Well, that wasn't really a band. It was just like two kids making noise in a bedroom and annoying all the parents. Yeah, no, it wasn't until I met Valerie that was really the first time that I played in the band. That was fun.
That's it's always really interesting how groups of people come together and start making music like that, because I guess everyone has their own different story of how it comes to be, and I guess it's funny how I guess acts of fate of forming a talent show and talent show ultimately getting canceled. Let's see, Jay, do you want to ask any questions?
Um, well, it's funny you said you were playing Guns N' Roses songs because it's funny you don't sound at all like your listed influences. You've mentioned like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, but your music is nothing like them.
Right. um, I don't think that I never really got good at the guitar enough to pursue rock and roll or metal or hard rock of any form. But that is, metal and rock and roll and hard rock and all that stuff. That's my first love. That's what I started. That was my first like vehicle into music since I was, I don't know, like 6 or 7. So I do, when I was playing with this guy, I was playing a lot of Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and things like that, and those are like things that I grew up with in my preteens that I just loved. But I never thought I was really good to actually pursue a career in metal, so I just like whatever.
What about like films and literature? Has that ever like bled into any of your music?
Hmm. Mm, no,
No?
no, not for me, for sure. I hated books. I never really read until like early or maybe like late 20s or so. I was gonna say early 30s, but like late 20s or so, I kind of like discovered books and I started reading, and maybe that influenced me later in life, but not growing up, not film and no books whatsoever. I feel really bad about that though.
Well, that's fine. Uh, what about
Cool.
for Valerie?
oh, I'm still here.
Oh.
You're talking about film and stuff.
Yeah, films
Oh,
and books.
um, I think for me, films, yes, because I always liked to watch Hitchcock films in high school, and the Vertigo soundtrack. There's like, it was beautiful, but it was sad, and so a lot of the films that I noticed that I liked as far as music were like kind of sad, and then I loved playing music that was kind of sad, that had a sadness to it, and. And then I was into a lot of also kind of sad literature. Like there are some books that Oscar Wilde wrote. They're kind of nice, but also kind of have a sadness to it, like The Happy Prince. So I think that influenced me in as far as the style. When I would make music, there always had to be like a sort of sadness to it, because I couldn't play some happy stuff, like really pop happy stuff. I just couldn't get into it. So I think maybe that might explain my, because I was always drawn to something sad somehow, like sad sounds.
Was that similar for like the musicians you would listen to as well?
Oh yeah, I listen to a lot of, Cocteau Twins or Chameleons UK or like The Cure and the songs, not the pop Cure stuff, but more like Disintegration or the sad stuff, like the really dark, like Joy Division. So I got influenced by them, and then of course shoegaze with Slow Dive. That really sort of like, wow, I was just blown away when I first heard them. So again, very sad, kind of heart wrenching music. Then from then on, I noticed like even I just couldn't do like happy songs.
That's that's very interesting. You have a very bubbly personality. So it's a
Oh, because I'm goofy like that? But
well. I mean, even just emailing you, I thought it was very funny how I find that very ironic. But in a good way. So
Roberto will tell you I'm such a goof.
Yeah, but there's always an underlying level of sadness in the things that we like.
Yeah.
Do you think
Yeah.
that kind of personality is required to make the kind of music you did?
Huh, that's a good question. Maybe there's some sort of like dual personality. There's some sort of like duality. Well, I can only speak for myself. There's like a duality aspect in my personality, and I guess maybe the way that I see the world that maybe reflects in how I approach music and how I don't know draw. I'm drawn to music. Um, I don't know because I don't know. I think that sometimes I can be a little flippy, and I think I can be as mellow and as passive, maybe too passive, just as chill as possible, But like next thing you know, I'm listening to like the hardest, fastest death metal blast beat or the most depressing dark wave gothic stuff or whatnot, and I don't know. I kind of like to bounce around. Um, I kind of like to bounce around the spectrum of things as much as
Yeah, and you can hear that in Velocity Design Comfort, I think, best. It's just all over the place, isn't it?
yeah, it's a mess.
No, but it's very good.
I would agree. I think so. I agree with Roberto. Like we're all like, for me, the sadness, the lyrics, it just can't be happy. But as far as like music, it can be both. Cause I'm like Roberto, where although most of the music I love were sad, I also on the opposite extreme really loved all this jungle music, like rave music. That's all very happy and sort of positive. And then yeah, I also liked a lot of like Beach Boys, like Pet Sounds and Brian Wilson music, which is kind of bubbly. Like Surfing USA, I love that too. So yeah, I don't know. I think lyrics wise, I just couldn't do happy lyrics, but music wise, I can do happy, which I guess I'm contradicting myself. But if I'm not writing it, as long as I'm not writing it, then yeah.
So who came up with the lyrics for the band's music then?
Roberto.
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
Unfortunately.
no, not unfortunately. So how did he come up with these lyrics? Because they often fit the music so perfectly.
I think that's my number one goal. My number one goal is to just write words that sort of fit the music. And on the flip side, I think there's a flaw in that because a lot of those lyrics do not make any sense nor rhyme properly. So in a way, I'm just like throwing words and somehow I find some meaning in them, but it's mostly about the sound, I guess, the sound of the words and how the sound of the words fit the music that they're put on top.
Yeah, like with Halika, the lyrics, they're so economical. Like it's like we just sing a few phrases here and there, like a couple words here and there, and nobody could really understand what we're singing about. But for me though, I got it. Like I understood. I think because we had so much similar like backgrounds and experience in life, so yeah, and it's true. It did fit the sound. Like that song, "Come to Me." There's like kind of these kind of undulating. And then when you sing "Come to Me," it sort of makes sense when you think about the music part or the sound part. But no, I liked how Roberto had cryptic sort of lyrics because then it's not like predictable. It's just smarter, I think.
Yeah, me too. Because it also gives for the audience, this room for interpretation. But when you're writing songs, what was your starting point?
It really depends. There's it really depends. I could start with a beat and start layering things on top and see if it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And it could also, I could also start with a bass line. I do oftentimes start things with bass lines because I love the bass. And oftentimes I just start with a guitar or start with a melody, or sometimes I don't even have a plan. I just like start pressing buttons to see what happens and might trigger something, and if it sticks, then it can grow into something bigger. There's usually not an MO or a template or a starting point that I always go to. It's really random.
But how about when you're putting an album together? Do you have some sort of theme then?
So one of the things that I really there are a handful of records that I really love, because they're records that just like flow seamlessly from beginning to end. And those records like really captivate me, and that's something that I always like push forward to. My idea of being able to create a record that you can listen from beginning to end and things just flow naturally from one song to the other. So for example, like my Bloody Valentine, Loveless is one of those. There's the Trashcan Sinatra's I've Seen Everything is another one that has amazing songs, individual songs, but you also have to experience that record from beginning to end, and it just makes sense. It's like a whole story. So that is my approach. It's like to create a whole big story of songs, and if I feel that I have succeeded in that, then awesome. But that's really it. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
Sorry, that was a little long.
Oh,
I'm really passionate about the subject of like a record that you can listen from beginning to end. I don't know if that's, I think that's a very special quality in music. I think that it's becoming more rare now with streaming and all that, which I don't think it's a problem. That's just the way the world is right now. But when it does happen, in this day and time, it's even more special. It's amazing when you do find a record that you can listen to from beginning to end, and you can hear the whole story, 45, 60 minutes of musical stories. It's great. I really love it.
Yeah, I completely agree, because there's no narrative with a single song always. It's like you need multiple songs together in order to create an atmosphere, and it's from that you can really immerse yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think even more than that, also what holds these albums together, especially your last two, is the lyrics. There's like a lot of recurring themes I hear throughout Velocity Design Comfort, like running away, and You'll Never Know Why. There's cruelty, pretending. There's a lot of themes like that, so it just wonders where you were in time when you were writing these.
I don't know. I guess not to sound cliche, but it's just one of those situations where you write your best music, or what you think is your best music, when I don't want to say your lowest, but not your best times in your life. I think there were a lot of hard things happening around that time, and as a way for catharsis, I guess it was easy for me to like write things about running away from problems or just feeling sorry for yourself type of thing, which is kind of like misfortunes are cruel. It's kind of like that.
I guess second group that I've spoken to that used the Tascam 4-track. Roy Montgomery was the other one, and I was curious about how was the transition from more analog recording to like using computers and software. You think you like from certain ones than others, or is it just a complete upgrade? You just not have to use floppy disk or anything like that anymore.
Both me and Valerie started with 4-tracks. Well, we're old.
Tascam.
We played our first shows with floppy disks. Don't forget that.
Wow.
I think it was just a natural progression. We started with 4-tracks because that's what we could afford at the time. And we just made the best of it. We just tried to push the 4-track as far as we could, but it wasn't really a thing of aesthetics or anything like that. It was just a tool that we could afford that could provide the capacity to make the compositions that we could make at the time, which in the end they all turned up in Halika. But then then after a while, like after that record came out, we felt the need for more tracks in order to record more things. So like we kind of like eventually upgraded to an ADAT, I think it was. And then after that, computers. I got a really crappy Pentium 3, I think it was, in like the late 90s, and it was
like Cubase back then.
Yeah,
Cubase.
yeah, no, exactly. Like
classes on Cubase at like City College.
Yeah.
And that's what.
Yeah, so like before Halika, we went out on tour in Southern California, and we had an Atari computer. And we were running Cubase off of that Atari computer.
Wow.
So we had to load all our songs on a floppy disk. And this was a really old computer with a monochrome screen and lots of MIDI cables coming out of it. Wow. Yeah, that was a mess.
Yeah, it was funny because that's the funny thing too, is because of the kind of technicality of velocity. When we were doing shows and would incorporate some of the songs from BDC, and we would play them live, the people doing the mix in the back of the room, they just didn't know what to do or didn't know how to mix it right. So a lot of our shows would become disaster because nobody knew how to like mix the sound. And then they'd be thinking like, oh, our speakers are probably blown or who knows what. But that was one of the challenges with BDC trying to play it live, is that though we had the computer there, on the other end, the people doing the mixing of the sound for the PAs, they just didn't know how to mix it. Because there was a lot of like sounds and glitches coming from nowhere. And then like, oh, less vocals, more guitar kind of thing, because the vocals were not really the emphasis. They were more like instruments, and it's not like here I am singing la 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 la. It's more like just another instrument or another kind of dimension of sound, which is why the BDC, it's not like all about you singing or trying to show off your vocal skills or whatnot. It's just more like kind of something on the side.
Yeah, to add to that, it was hard also for us to play shows because we had a ton of gear. So we had 2 guitars and 2 guitar amps, and we had a bass and a bass amp, and then we had the computer, and then with the computer we had something like 2 analog keyboards. We probably had some like rack mount synthesizers with some effects. We had 2 drum machines. We had 2 samplers, and it would usually take us like 45 minutes to an hour to like set up before we could actually do a sound check. So like, yeah, that's insane. I was actually remembering, we opened for Cornelius in San Francisco.
Oh wow!
I think it was for
at the Independent.
Yeah, I think it was like the first leg of their Fantasma tour. Is that the name of the record?
Yeah.
So we opened for them, and so like we got to the venue, and they were late. They came late. They set up late. They sound checked late because they were the headliners. They had to do all that stuff first, and then when they were done, they only gave us like 30 minutes to set up our stuff, which usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour to set up and sound check. So we were, I don't know about the rest, but I was like stressed out, anxious, pissed as hell, and just like rushing to like set everything up. And I do remember getting everything done in like 35 minutes, playing the show and actually being like one of the best shows that we ever played.
Yeah, I think it sounded pretty good. The one that was bad was at South by Southwest, because somehow I don't know, guitars.
Yeah, like the other bands were bleeding through too, weren't they?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was some band in another room, and it just kind of bled through. Although I like radio shows, I like playing in front of a radio in a radio station more than like out in public. Which that was one of the things for me is personality wise on stage I had zero personality, and it's not that interesting to watch me on stage because I have no sort of persona. Which I think I got, constructive criticism before, saying like Donald, our friend, used to say, "Oh, you guys, you need to move around some more, or kind of like be more like stars or so." Like, but then we're just kind of, I don't know. I feel that's one of the things about playing live where I don't really know how to be a rock star. So if you watch our video of some live performance, you can see that we're just playing, but it's not like performing.
And that's another reason why I don't play Guns N' Roses songs. Because I do not strut my hips.
Yeah, like some bands are really good with that, but I think that's why we're so hidden. We're like this hidden band. Nobody knows about us because of that reason. We don't like band pictures, taking the typical, spread, look cool for the picture, that kind of thing. We just sort of like our records. We don't have our pictures in them because we like to be hidden, I guess.
Oh. Did you ever wish you could be more popular though, and maybe tour and play more shows?
Well, now I feel I get all kinds of emails from people, and I really feel happy about it. I appreciate that they're so kind that they would contact us and tell us how much they like the music, and that's really touching, and I'm so happy about that. I feel appreciative of all this. It's getting popular. So I think now I'd probably be able to enjoy playing live more, because back then we would play, nobody really cared. Like there would be a few people watching us, but now they really like it for the music. So that would be kind of more encouraging for you to play out there, because the people already love your music. So I would do it, and before I wasn't really motivated to practice as much, but I used to always mess up. But now I've matured, so if I were to play again, then I'd probably practice my butt off now. Just because I'm just really happy that all these young people are just enjoying it now, years later.
That's a good observation.
So what were the early practice sessions like then?
I guess they were, I don't know, nothing. I don't think they were anything particularly exciting. It was just like, okay, we have a set of songs. Let's try to roll over the parts. Let's try to break it down into little chunks, put it all together. Let's try to make it sound as decent as we can possibly make it sound. And then somehow we would end up feeling confident enough to go out and play shows. I think they were cool. I particularly enjoyed not practicing our songs, like taking like breaks in between practices to just like mess around and just make noise and make really loud noise, and those
do covers.
Yeah, covers. Do some Massey Star covers and stuff. I try to, but yeah, they were, I don't know, just I will call them standard practices. I wouldn't know how else to describe them.
Yeah, practice sessions were few and far between, but in the beginning with Halika, we had our own practice studio, so we would go in there and be in there for hours. And plus, we were younger and in college, and we had a lot of time to just kind of like mess around in this rental practice studio. But for the you will never know why time frame, everybody was busy with jobs, so the way we would practice was, okay, you learn your part, practice at home, and then before the show, we would maybe meet up three times before the show, and then just kind of hope it kind of blends well together. But that's how we would do it. We just practice on our own, and then just 3 days of formal practice for a couple hours, and then wing it.
Wing it, yeah.
That's all we would do. As we got older.
Yeah. We got older, we got even less professional.
Well, I guess knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself back then, or to maybe new or younger musicians?
I would tell younger me to learn how to manage time better. Or maybe not learn how to manage time better, but just like I don't know, like learn how to no, actually, yeah, learn how to manage time better. Learn to prioritize. A lot of times I still actually find myself just kind of like procrastinating and starting things and not finishing them and just losing things and getting things stolen and not backing up and things like that. So just like management in general, that's something that I would totally tell younger me. Is like, dude, back everything up, schedule things, do plans, get a spreadsheet and map out the things that you need to do. I think that would have been really helpful.
For me, I would say, don't be so critical on yourself. Just because if you're like nitpicking and then you're like, it's not good enough, I don't want to show this to anybody, or I don't think I'll finish this. You just kind of like, don't worry about that. Just if you really like it, then don't be so critical. It's fine. Finally, like, put it out there. That kind of thing. You never know. You'll never know, like, who's gonna like it someday. You never know why.
You never know why.
Yeah, it's hard. Sometimes you're just feeling like, am I done with this yet? Or I don't know, it's missing something. But then you just kind of shove it into the shelves and then you forget about it. So I would say just, it'll never be ready. So.
Face Valley getting emails and such, and I'm sure you probably get something similar, Robbie. I noticed that I think it was your Alaka EP, where I guess it had like a physical address or something like that for like mail or something like that. Did you ever get like fan mail or anything like that, or did anything like stick out to you in terms of like fan interactions or anything like that? Especially, I guess now that Sweet Trips kind of has a cult status around it or anything like that.
I don't remember. I don't know. Do you remember?
No, I don't think anyone really sent us anything. No, nothing like that. No, we hardly really got any response. Just, it's again, there were people who loved it and contacted, but not the same way that I'm experiencing now, where I'm getting all these, even YouTube on my personal Facebook page. Everyone somehow manages to find my presence, and I don't really turn them away, or I'm always trying to respond because they're like such nice people and very sort of mentory, and so I just friend everybody. And I was like, oh, I wonder if Roberto, because Roberto's a main songwriter, and so I'm thinking he must have it like so much more, you know. So I'm happy about it, and I try to respond to everybody. I don't know. I don't want to be disobliging, or yeah. They're just music lovers, like I am. Us. So thanks to everybody. We love you. We love you. That's something we always say. Sample of "We love you."
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah, but no, I don't remember getting any fan mails back in the days.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world now. It's really surprising.
But no, VDC was always my favorite album of all. And back then, I would give copies of my like to my family or friends, and they're like, "Is there something wrong? How come it's so noisy?" And they just didn't understand. So then, when You Will Never Know Why came out, it was more quiet. But then I was like, "Oh, Roberto, I like all the bleeps. I like more of that stuff." So there's songs in there with more glitch and bleepy stuff. But I'm just really glad that everybody loves BDC, because that was always my favorite. And out of all the Sweet Trip, and now that's what's happening right now. Most people really, really love BDC.
And what about you, Robbie? What was your favorite album?
I would say VDC as well. Yeah, I think that was it's my favorite because it was a huge learning experience. It was like it was like being locked in a lab for a long time and just trying things out and just the it was like, I don't know, it was like having, I don't know, you're a scientist, you're an engineer. Imagine having access to a lab all to yourself for a long period of time, and you get to do whatever you want, run whatever experiment you want in this lab, and then just like go with it. And that's kind of like how I felt with BDC. I found myself with a handful of tools, and I was listening to a lot of like glitchy stuff and techno stuff and just weird kind of electronic music stuff. And I was like, I want to try to make that sound. So I'm going to lock myself for a week until I somehow get something that sounds like it. And then when I did, then I was like, oh, well, maybe I can just like put a synthesizer on top of it and see what happens. And it just kind of like, it just like went on and on and on and on like that. And that's the reason why. I also think it's really, I like the intensity of it as well. That's why I like it.
Very interesting kind of analogy to make, because sometimes it can be very overwhelming if you have so much tools or something like that. But you got to figure out, I guess, what you want to do. Kind of continuing on that, did it some of the ideas of songs, or maybe some of the songs for like VDC or any of your albums, did they kind of change over time, or was that like kind of like what was originally made kind of is what was the end product? Or is it a lot of like you put something together and you're like, well, I don't know if this will work. I'm going to take these parts off that I might like, and then maybe try and make something similar or something different. And then he was like, oh, maybe this part might work here or something like that.
I feel that every song was written sort of as its own entity. Mm-hmm. So there were no parts from other ideas that got put together or mixed and matched in order to create the songs in VDC. But there are a handful of songs in there that are fairly old that did go through several like iterations of styles. One of them is Fruitcake and Cookies. So that one was a kind of like that started as a kind of like I don't know what the style would be. Kind of like Britpoppy funk guitar type of tune. I don't know if you guys like the Happy Mondays or like one of those like early '90s British bands that were all like into like baggy pants, like the baggy movement, like the baggy bands. So that was like my attempt at trying to make an instrumental, stupid, baggy tune. It sounded really dumb, and then from there it went into our friend Vied came up with the idea of like turning it into more of a My Bloody Valentine type of song, because the chords kind of like lend themselves to that kind of style. So we tried that out. And I think we might have played it live too, like before Sweet Trip. We might have played it at friends' parties and things like that. And then that song morphed into something else that I'm completely forgetting what it was like. Probably like this an acoustic version. And then Halika came out, and I just like forgot about the song. And then when it was time for VDC, I was like, I remember that song. I wonder what would sound if I just like add a shit ton of software on top of it and see what happens. um, and yeah, and so that's the version of Fruitcake and Cookies that's on BBC. Is like the fourth or fifth version of that song in like a period of 10 years, I think.
Jay, do you have any questions? I'm gonna throw it back
Well,
to
yeah,
you.
as a follow up, like, because I remember listening through a lot of the early demo versions of some songs like Chocolate Matter and Velocity, and you'd have like do's and da's you'd sing. You didn't have lyrics yet, so I figured, were words more of a melodic tool for you than anything?
Yes, yes. I may write something. I may write a line that might mean something to me, but it might just be like an isolated line, surrounded by a bunch of other words. But yeah, lyrics and melodies are the lyrics are just kind of like meant to go. They're meant to sort of like they're more like a phonic tool than actually a mean to communicate something. But there are attempts to communicate something, and whether people get it or not, that's really up to the listener. But yeah, it's mainly like I'm mainly writing words to songs for the sonic aspect of it, for the timbre, I guess, aspect of the melody and how I want the melody to sound. Because maybe like a line doesn't sound better with maybe a line sounds better ending with an sound instead of a sound, and I just like pick a word that sounds like that kind of sort of finishes the sentence, but doesn't necessarily.
I can relate with Roberto on that. Like when I would write songs, the lyrics were always the last, and it would be sort of like what would sound to fit the tempo, what kind of words would. But and again, it's not like I want to tell you what I'm feeling in your face lyrics. There's a lot of good lyrics out there from like Morrissey or the Beatles, but I can relate with Roberto in that songs. In our case, it's meant to fit the sound instead of like us telling people wise lyrics or nice things. Like it's not in your face. It's just sort of like he's saying. If you have too many consonants in a word, then it's not gonna sound right with like the melody that you're trying to. So it's more like what would fit that melody and sound, like it fits inside like a puzzle. Words are like puzzles.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so a friend wants me to ask, what electronics are used live on the occasion you did play shows?
So the period between Halika and BBC, we had a Juno 6, we had an Akai analog synthesizer. I'm forgetting the model of it.
Yeah.
But it was a big bulky white keyboard. It sounded like, but it did its thing. And then we also had go ahead.
We used processors like Digitech processors.
Oh yeah.
And we also had, we had live drums too, but electronics wise, the drum kit you had too, Roberto.
We had two drum machines. One was an Elise's, and the other one was probably like a Roland or a Boss, just digital stuff. But yeah, then like Valerie said, we had like Digitech guitar effect processors, and we would just like turn every single effect on.
Pitch modulators.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. We just had, and then also effect pedals. We started out using a lot of effect pedals, like the singular ones, like a digital reverb delay or metal zone or
my favorite.
Yeah. So we had like tremolo pedal, wah pedals, the standard sort of stuff, and that's how we would just kind of tweak. But then after a while, it becomes ridiculous having too many pedals. So then we bought like full rack, big processors, which I forget the model of, but yeah, then we upgraded to these heavy processors with foot controllers. But yeah, we started out like collecting all kinds of foot pedals. like tremolo or phaser or whatever.
Yeah, which I still have.
And at one point, I was using a micro cord to play Chocolate Matter because I lost my keyboard, my synthesizer, so I had the tiny little micro cord, and I would play Chocolate Matter, and then I'd have to transpose at the same time while I'm playing the pitch because they're limited keys. So that was kind of funny how I like, oh, quick switch. And then, but no, I loved having the less equipment and that process, amplifiers. I love the twin reverb,
JC120.
JC120 because it's so clean and wet sounding, and yeah, that's one of my favorite.
Yeah, it's what Slowdive uses as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think we got JC120s because of Slowdive Pro.
Yeah. That. And Ampeg bass, like big ones. Even the guitars. I like the Telecaster that Roberto had. I had like a Fender Jaguar, but only because someone sold it to me for cheap. But sound-wise, it wasn't my favorite. I always envied Roberto for having a Telecaster.
Well, I should have sold it. I should have sold it to you then.
Yeah.
I think it was heavy.
And then I also liked the Rickenbacker back then.
Yeah, and then we had the Atari computer that we used to play with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was probably it. JC120s and guitars and a bunch of just a ridiculous setup of keyboards and drum machines and pedals and what a mess.
It sounds like a very comprehensive list. So whoever asked that probably's got a lot to look at.
Yeah, the digital delay reverb pedal was our favorite.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Did you ever come up with ideas based around these pedals and effects?
Yeah, actually, so like one of my favorite pedals is the Boss phaser pedal from the 80s. Is that the green box that only has the 3 knobs in it?
Yeah, it's like PH1R, I think.
Yeah, PH1R. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one, that one you crank up the depth all the way up. You lower the speed all the way down, and you crank up the resonance all the way up, and you start playing clean chords through it, and it hooked up to the JC120, and it just sounds like heaven. It sounds amazing, and just playing chords through that effect pedal just inspired me. It inspired me to create the last version of Fruitcake and Cookies, actually. So there's that crazy phaser thing at the end of the song, and that's sort of like my bedroom version of what I used to do live with that song, with that pedal. That's one of them. I still have it. I love that pedal. It's great.
And I guess my question was like, did you guys really get any like insight on the physical designs of these? One of the reasons why I asked is because, like, at least for VDC, I think that's probably one of the better, if not one of the best examples of how the cover and the design basically matches almost perfectly with the sounds. Or was it just something that the simultaneous workshop people just kind of came up on their own?
Yeah, well, actually, the front cover, I like that too. It's sort of like the architecture, the picture. It's like a famous architecture, and it talks about design. I mean, it has to do with design, and that it's. The only thing is that I don't think it was really Ellen Fortunato who did the design, because I asked James about that, and he told me it was Andrew Prince of Mahogany. He's like this band called Mahogany, and he said, "Oh, it's actually Andrew Prince who created that cover design." So, yeah, I like the front cover and the colors, but the back cover, I didn't like it so much.
I like how you're saying you like the front cover, but you're frowning the whole time you're saying that.
I don't know. We didn't really, to be honest, I didn't have any input as to what the art should be. And I don't know if Roberto did, but all I know is that it was mostly handled by our label, and he had an in-house designer.
That's funny that you mentioned the Mahogany album, because before, when we were kind of consolidating our questions together, and Jay was like, "Oh, I think they did the same thing for Mahogany because it looks almost very similar in style and stuff like that." So
Yeah, their album Connectivity is like exactly the same style of like these buildings that are cut out and just sort of rearranged.
Yeah, there you go. It's because it is Andrew Prince who did it.
He runs or used to run a design company, and he was hired by Darla Records to do the album cover for this. I think originally we were supposed to have some sort of communication with the design company with Andrew, but there really wasn't any, and I think that Andrew probably ran into some personal problems while he was trying to design the cover, and so he sort of had to take some time off. And Darla Records was running out of time, and they wanted to release a thing. So I think what Andrew did was just like pass on the unfinished design to the person who's listed on the record.
Oh.
Yeah, and so these other two, or her, or whatever, they kind of like put it all together really quickly and then just like released it, and that's really the story of it.
How about for You'll Never Know Why with the razor on the cover?
So that was a drawing by Aaron Porter, who played bass, and I think I kind of don't remember how that one came about, but I think we just go ahead.
It was funny because I think we were overthinking it, and we were like trying to come up with a cover, and then one day it's like, here you go. It's kind of like simple.
No.
And it's like just kind of. I feel like maybe we kind of settled, just kind of to settle on a design. But I even tried to like recruit all my artists friends. Like, can you come up with something? Because we're trying to find a design, and ultimately, Aaron just like drew a razor blade, so we're okay with it. We're kind of simple people with that regard, like album covers and stuff. Yeah, some people like they really emphasize the artwork, but I think for us, again, we could have done that, but we kind of just like, okay, that sounds fine, that's okay. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe in future we care more about how the album covers look.
Yeah, maybe do a gold plated CD and gold plated everything.
So this confirms there's going to be a new album, huh?
I don't know.
That's not a confirmation. Speculations, but not a confirmation. Really did not remember about how we came about the razor thing. I know that Aaron Porter did it, and yeah, I do remember being like, okay, let's just like have something and just put it out and let's just see what happens. It's really simple, but I kind of like how the title and the title of the record and the razor image combination. It's interesting to me.
I guess this is kind of a deep question for you, Robbie. I found this very interesting, and I like how you guys describe how either describing your the lyrics as economical or things like this, because I find it very funny in a way where usually you don't hear stuff like that. One of the questions I guess for you, Robbie, is I guess there's some post or whatever, and you mentioned that you said something along the lines of, it's funny how when I now hear in VDC so many disagreeable glitches among all the intentional ones. And I was kind of curious, what makes a disagreeable, glitch versus, a regular one. I guess it's kind of funny with like, you can say, oh, the whole, like, if you're trying to make anti-art, but at the same time, you're making something glitchy, but then you end up having glitches that weren't what you originally wanted or something like that.
Yeah, I think I was referring to just the aspect of some of those glitches that I think are kind of like painful. I think they're all well placed within the songs. but I think it's more of a. I think I was referring more to like the mix of things in the songs themselves. I think that I mixed that record with the little knowledge that I had at the time. So I was just like winging it and trying to come up with the best decisions I could make at the time. And I think that I think that being sort of like a beginner with digital, not digital, but like software EQs and software compressors and things like that, and trying to like make sense of things. I think that a lot of things a lot of things that sound kind of awful, kind of bled just out of ignorance and lack of expertise, and that is really what I mean by that. I think that um, it's supposed to be insane. It's supposed to sort of like hopefully not give you a real headache, but it's supposed to be really overwhelming. But at the same time, I think that sonically, physically, it could have been mixed a whole lot better if I had the expertise to do so. So like I hear things like I hear a feedback kind of sounding thing somewhere here, and I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool, but my ear, kind of like that.
So, what
Think
are your thoughts
oh,
on VDC now, though? Just in retrospect.
So I've heard, not heard, but I've read people say that the record is all over the place. I think some people may have commented that it's probably not a very focused record, and I forget that there might be something else that like another criticism that I've read in the past that I actually agree with. I do think that record is all over the place. I do think that record it's weird. It's like for me, it's focused because I know what I was going for. I think that I'm able to turn myself into a listener, an outsider, and recognize some of those points that people are bringing up. I mean, it is kind of crazy that the first 3 songs on the record are just like completely like not cohesive. They're cohesive because they're cohesive sonically, but style wise, it's like first you have this like glitchy, crazy drum and bass thing, then you have like a pop song, and then you have this like long 10-minute, I don't know, blend of I have no idea what. To me, I love that aspect, but put myself in someone else's shoes, like I can totally get the criticism of like, okay, just by these 3 songs, where is this going? I don't get it. But at the same time, I do think that I am really proud of it. And aside from the comment that I made about the glitches and like the disagreeable glitches, if I could mix it better, I would. I wouldn't change anything out of it.
See, I on the contrary think Velocity Design Comfort is very cohesive in the way of maybe like a collage, because altogether, though it may be hectic, it just has this very distinct feeling that I can't describe even still.
Cool. Yay. I mean that's great. I mean I love hearing from people when they say things like that. And that feels really good. It makes me feel more proud of the work.
Namely, who are your electronic influences outside of Aphex to Nauticure? Because I can't really pin down anything else.
Probably Square Pusher, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Seafeel.
See,
I really like the future sound of London. I always say the future sounds of London. It's the future sound of London. I like a lot of techno. I like a lot of house. Just like the 4 on the floor type of thing.
we also got into a lot of like Ninja Tunes label drum and bass.
Oh yeah.
There was a period when we would go to the independent, what was used to be the Justice League, like all kinds of drum and bass artists like
Right.
like Goldie or LTJ Bookham, or there are all kinds of drum and bass musicians. That's why because the beats, we really like that sort of low end, sort of sounding, deep sounding bass and beats.
Photech.
Yeah, Photech, Omni Trio, those kind of bands for
Yeah, we were
so many.
we were listening to a lot of drum and bass for quite a while.
Yeah, what Guy called Gerald, one that comes to mind. Yeah, old school stuff like Four Hero. We also like Spring Heel Jack.
I think around the time around the time that I was writing BDC, I was also listening to people like Kid 606. Remember that?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
Kid 606, like Venetian snares, and there were a lot of like Richard Devine. There were a lot like around the late '90s, early 2000s, a lot of people who were trying to do the author thing in their own way, and I'm guilty of that. um, but I was but I was listening to a lot of these people trying to do author, and I was like, I really want to do that too. I must.
Oh yeah, like music. This band, the guy, where he writes his name like the symbol mu, and then Zik
ZIQ.
music. Yeah, he was good. He was good.
Man, there's so many. It's
What I also wondered were who were your contemporaries, because you were working through Darla Records in like early 2000s. There were My Morning Jacket, Rocket Ship, Wendy and Carl. Did you ever interact with any of them ever?
let's see. I don't think I ever met anyone from our Morning Jacket. Unfortunately, I think didn't we play for Wendy and Carl?
We did. We did. Yeah. It was rare for us to play shows or meet other label mates. But there is one, my junior varsity, Kenrick McDowell. We kind of like played with him quite often. Really know them that well, and I think only Rocket Ship I think we knew, or Holiday Flyer. We always felt like our music was not as indie as the majority of the bands in Darla. So, most of the bands they signed at the time I felt were like the indie, whereas the Sweet Trip was sort of like fluctuating between indie and electronica, and sort of like didn't really fit in. But I think Halika got it into Darla in the first place, but the other albums though, it was kind of hard to fit it in there.
So you never felt part of a scene at all?
No, not really.
I guess if we ever did, it was probably just by association with the label, but not musically, I guess. In fact, I'm actually surprised that Darla Records actually put out BDC because that record's insane.
But no, they're nice. They're awesome. We love Darla too.
That's how I used the contact page off of their website, and definitely helped to get to contact with you, Valerie. So
yeah.
And I guess it was kind of, I've been checking more so their stuff out too, because especially even just listening to you guys, it's always very nice to. That's probably one of the best things you can do as someone listening to music is always check out the label.
Yeah, I like the Robin Guthrie, because I grew up like I listened to a lot of Cocteau Twins, so when they put out Robin Guthrie, that got me all excited because I regard Robin Guthrie as one of the my idols.
Guitar god.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. How is it that you all came to meet James from Darla though?
I think we made a handful of cassette demos, and we just mailed them out to just anyone who we thought might give us their time of day. One of them was Darla Records, and I think they got a tape and they called us back or emailed us back.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah, it was Fish. It was Fish, and they really liked Fish, so that's what got them to connect with us, and they went from there. Yeah.
Yeah, and Halika was released on vinyl, but why not Velocity Design Comfort? And you'll never know why.
It's funny you say that.
Yeah. I think the explanation was that those two records came out around the time where vinyl sales were dropping. So according to Darla Records, it just wasn't a good financial decision to put out vinyl records at the time. So yeah, that's the reason why.
Oh, let's see. That's the bulk of my questions. I have a few scattered ones that aren't really connected at all, but I'm just gonna dash through those. So
sure.
Is it alright if I ask you a question? You
sure.
prefer vinyl? You would prefer to have a vinyl? Like if you were to have a VGC and vinyl, would you prefer that?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Like any other way of listening to the album, because I've listened to it so many times through headphones, just and I also like having physical merchandise as well, especially for groups I really love.
Yeah, I find I'm getting a lot of requests for vinyl too.
Yeah.
For
I think somebody
so that's pretty cool.
put I forget, like one of those pledge things where with her they were pledging for Dial Records to put out BDC on vinyl. Yeah, that was like a while ago.
Sign the petition.
Yeah,
Sign the petition.
right.
Yeah, and you had it linked to your SoundCloud too, but it seemed to have shut down also.
Oh, okay. Huh. I haven't checked it in a while, so I don't know. Let's see if it works.
Oh yeah, so some of my scattered questions. Where do the titles Disco, Tekka, and Sept come from? Or also Allura?
Allura is just a made-up word. Tekka was I was having sushi and I was having a tekka maki, and I thought tekka sounds like a good title for a song. Disco is just the song is kind of, in my opinion, it's a little disco-y. It kind of has like a disco-y kind of backbeat, so I just got lazy and called it disco. But then I thought I don't want to be that lazy, so I'll just remove the I.
There we are, economical.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, we're kind of simple people. That's why we don't really overly think like what song titles should be. And even I think halika, because in Filipino there's a word that it's called halika, and it means come here. So I used to say that all the time to halika, halika, and I don't know if that's where that came from, but again, we don't really like whatever. It's okay, just title it this because we don't know what else to call it, sort of thing. That's how simple we are.
Yeah. Nine Sept was I believe that was just the name of the project file, because I think I worked on that song from sort of like some sort of beginning all the way to the end, minus the vocals, on September 9th of whatever that year was. So that was just the name of the project.
Oh wow. But what about titles like Chocolate Matter and Fruitcake and Cookies, for instance, all food related?
Huh.
Well, arguably Tekka as well.
Arguably, right. Fruitcake and Cookies. I think I just came up with that title just for the sake of having a title.
Did you have a plate of cookies in front of you?
I always have a plate of cookies in front of me. I always have a plate of something in front of me. Chocolate Matter is basically like a PG version of Matter. So I just call it Chocolate Matter.
Oh.
Yeah, that was really stupid, but that's the title of the song now.
The funny thing about the Halika album is there's a couple of songs there. Come to Me and Follow Me. They kind of got switched around when it got pressed. So the original, the correct title for Follow Me is really Come to Me, and then the song Come to Me, it's supposed to have the title Follow Me. So nobody else would know that, but we did. We're like, okay, just let it be. It already got pressed. But yeah, they kind of screwed that up. So now you know. Follow Me is not Follow Me. It's Come to Me, and Come to Me is Follow Me.
That's right.
You follow?
Let's see. Another one was your SoundCloud page is WOTF, and I figured, oh, that stands for Winter of the Wolf, but whatever was that?
I was that was just a random name that I picked. Funny enough, because I was reading the series A Song of Ice and Fire around that time, Game of Thrones, and so I was like, yeah, direwolves are awesome. I'm just gonna call my SoundCloud page Winter of the Wolf, because yeah. But then I came to my senses and I realized that was really stupid, so I changed it, but I can't really change the URL unless I open another account. So it just stays as.
Plus, I think Roberto and I were getting into like a prog rock phase, and if you think about it, a lot of like progressive rock bands, they kind of have this sort of fantasy sort of like theme about them. So that's what I also attributed that Wolf theme, and Wolf sort of like fantasy, like progressive rock, and even the sounds kind of remind me of like the Goblin or those that kind of generation.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good observation.
That's
Yeah, we love all kinds of music. We just go all over the place.
That's the best thing you can do. There's so much of it, so
Yeah.
why not stop at one place? Is there any musician, I guess, any musician ever that you would want to meet for both of you guys?
That's really hard. I had to think about it. But in the end, you might hate me for it, but I would say Michael Jackson. I mean, I'm not a young boy, so I'm not in any danger. But no, I really like his. I really love Michael Jackson's voice. The way he sings and stuff, it just so I just love his voice. He wasn't original. I mean, I gotta tell you that. And the dancing and I think he's kind of like a shy or kind of sweet. If you take away all the crazy stuff, the controversial stuff, that kind of the ugly stuff, he made a lot of awesome songs. Yeah, there's only one Michael Jackson. Also, the shows that he would do, he really made full-on production-wise, just bring it on. And so he's like a true performer. So I would love to meet him if I could.
Is it easy for you to separate the art from the artist?
Yeah, it is. And because again, despite what horrible things he might have done, he still made all this music that kind of touched people, and he inspired a lot of people. Like, look at all these copycats that came out. It's anything unique, and if you're the only one in the world who's like that, then yeah, that to me, I look up to that a lot. So even his fashion sense, man, that was pretty cool too.
Well, how about you, Robbie?
I would say David Bowie. I would have loved to have met David Bowie. Yeah, I've always had a dream of like being able to play guitar with him. In a way, I had this dream of like approaching him and being like, "Yo, David, can I be your guitarist for, I don't know, a week or so?" I think that would have been great. And he also seems like a really genuine, nice dude who's also very talented and just very bigger than life. I would have loved to meet him.
David Bowie too, yeah.
They're both pretty good picks.
Both awesome.
And some of your social media, Robbie, that you seem to be a little bit of a cat person. I guess for your Bandcamp page, you have a picture of a cat with like almost laser eyes and stuff like that. Is that your cat, I guess?
Yes.
What's his name? And I assume you like sampled him as well on the one track. I wrote it down, but
Is that Ray BT?
yeah,
Ray.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. His name is Dante, black cat, and he's really loud sometimes. And I just got lucky and pulled out a microphone and caught him going like, "Wah!" Just put him on the track just for some giggles.
Do you have any pets, Valerie?
No, I don't.
No.
I used to have a cat. That was also my first pet, but I don't really have any now because it's a responsibility. And I don't have time.
Yeah.
But I like dogs because I've grown to have allergies, and my asthma over the years got really bad, so I can't really have any cats anymore. So if I were to have pets, then they must not have any hair, I guess. Well, there are hairless cats, but no, too scary. But yeah, no. I can't. Goldfish, maybe.
Yeah. Well,
No, I like dogs.
Mhm.
Dogs.
I had to put my dog in the other room because I think in my other interview he started barking halfway through. So I learned my girlfriend named him Chespy, and I guess she named him after Chespirito. I guess
Oh.
he's the comedian. Yeah, he kind of acts like one sometimes. He's definitely gonna be pretty tricky, but it's always funny how people talk about their animals. So I thought that'd be a fun question to ask.
Well, I was just wondering where you plan on going with Black Tunic, and then I also saw before you were part of a band called Goodnight Robot, and so where are you headed now with music?
So I was playing guitar with Goodnight Robot. That band is no longer active, unfortunately, so that's sad. Black Tunic, I guess. So I am, I am trying to put together things in order to release them under the Black Tunic label. I don't know. I don't really have any plans, but I do want to do more with that. It all really depends on. It really depends on time. I find myself struggling with creativity a lot, and I also procrastinate a lot. So, but I would like to continue putting silly electronic stuff out under that. We'll see what happens. It's like this whole week I've been working on something, and I think that I have something that I can kind of call finished. That's encouraging me to like start something else and hopefully finish it, and maybe who knows what happens after that.
And is it when you lack creativity that you might just to do a remix? Because I think you've done some for Takako Minakawa, and you've done one off the James Joyce Chamber Music compilation.
No, I think those remixes are actually just really wonderful opportunities that have fallen on my lap, and I'm really grateful for doing those things. And doing remixes is actually, I would love to have more opportunities to do remixes because they do open my creativity like quite a lot. Because you're not, you're not working with your own things anymore. You're working with someone else's, and so like your perception of what you want in life just completely disappears, and now you're thinking about someone else's, and somehow you have this like I feel like I have this vulgar freedom to like mess up with their tracks, which is really great. And then I just go with it. Like I in a way I see it as like, this is an opportunity for me to just like try something out, go crazy with it, and the worst that could happen is that they won't accept it, and maybe that's it. Might be a blow to my ego, but it will not be a blow to like the record that I'm trying to put out and put together, And then like working on remixes is like putting everything out and trying things out and messing with things. It's such a wonderful experience. So I wish that I had more opportunities like that, because I think that would be really helpful with the stuff that I'm trying to do on my own.
Well, I think the last question from me now is, over the past decade, there have been a lot of artists whose sound have been coming closer and closer to yours, like Candy Claus, Depreciation Guild. The band Radio Department has an EP that I feel is really, really close to a lot of your demos you posted to SoundCloud. So do you feel this is almost inevitable, that people are almost coming towards your sound in a way?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, actually. Somebody somewhere made a comment that BDC was the precursor to vaporwave, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
I read that too. Yeah, that was on some weird Bandcamp editorial, and just reading through it made me feel like, it's not right.
Right. And so like, and that's not to say anything bad about vaporwave. I love vaporwave. Like I can listen to vaporwave like all the time. I really love that stuff, but I just don't see. I don't see the connection. I don't see the line between A and B, and
Oh.
so with all these new bands, maybe what's really happening is every decade always points back to like two decades back. That appears to be like the hit thing for that one decade. So like 10 years ago it was the 80s. Now we're living with the retro 90s stuff, and a lot of the stuff that influenced our first two records are bands from the 90s. And I think maybe all we are seeing is people going back two decades, listening to stuff that we used to listen to when we were growing up, sort of like the same MO, I guess, that we did back then. Now, I don't know if that makes any sense, but if it does, that's kind of like how I see it. I think it's just like, I don't know, like I see it kind of like if you were to like let's say you were like going to interview someone like I don't know, say the Chameleons UK. Let's say you're going to interview the Chameleons UK in like 2001, and you ask them like, well, what do you think about bands like Interpol? They're like, do you think that you spearheaded that kind of stuff? And I think the answer would be more like, I don't think, they'll probably say like, I don't think we spearheaded anything. I think it's just like people are just appreciating some of the influences that we appreciated at the time, and they're bringing it to their life now and making it their own. I hope that's what they would say, and not that they would say like, yeah, they're starting to steal my shit.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it did make sense.
Yeah.
Because it was how I was thinking, like all of this stuff, it never really left. It was just, it's always been there, and it started out, back in, music concrete with like electronic music's been around forever. More and more people get into it, and then combining shoegaze with glitch is just it just picked up more, I guess. But I feel like it never left. Like Roberto was saying, it's not like, oh, you started this, and now everyone's trying to do what you're doing. Granted, Roberto does it better than anyone else. So I think, yeah, I've heard a lot of these other ones, and it's not as it's just not as good, I would say. And I don't want to sound like but yeah, no, Roberto, that's why, like, there's all these bands, for instance, back in the 80s, you would get for the synthwave stuff, like there are all these other bands, which now you have bands like Soft Kill or Contra Void or Black Marble, and yet they're doing stuff now that synth bands in the 80s or 70s were doing. It just seems like it never really left. So,
and plus with like streaming and stuff, and just people talking about it more, it's a lot easier to access things like like Chameleons or Joy Division and stuff like that might have otherwise, like during the 90s or early aughts, people would have no idea existed, and some people still don't know that exists. So it's kind of, there's a Pandora's box of, all this stuff is out there, and it's maybe a lot more easier for people to get into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it is true though that VGC is unique because it blends different genres of music so well. That's what makes sets it apart from other bands that have maybe pop sounding music, and then they just layer some drum machines or electronic sounds into it. That's kind of like, that's where it's different.
Jay, do you have any questions, or do you think it's time to wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm tapped out, and I'm still very, very, very thankful that you two could join us, and I'm so happy about this. It's made my year, probably. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. And I'm glad you guys listened to Sweet Trip. Thank you so much. I don't know how you found Sweet Trip, but yeah, that would be my question to you. But
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I'm actually curious about that.
Well,
how you guys found out about this?
all right. Let's see. I was always into very dreamy and
Oh.
youthful kind of music, like Slow Dive and Candy Claws. I found first, and what I really liked about them was that they were really youthful. Slow Dive had this. It was youthful in the way of like wallowing in your room, kind of depressed. Candy Claws had this like adventurous mystique about it, and Sweet Trip for me was both, and I found them through 4chan's music board back in 2014. I think, yeah.
Yeah,
Hi.
that's probably somewhat unlike Jay. I never like most I got into music, especially growing up, was like the Beach Boys compilation that my mom would play in the CD in the guitar in the car, and things like that. And so I never really got into like actually going out and listening to music until I started like getting to high school, and I started listening to probably bands like Interpol and like maybe some of these indie pop bands, and then I just try to find as much as I can, and eventually I looked around all these music boards and things like that, and I eventually got into shoegaze, and then everyone was like, "Oh, there's this crazy album that it's got glitch and it's got shoegaze and it's really good and really great." So
Cool.
Yeah.
I do wonder because it's I see I see that record as being so like I don't know obscure and I don't know sort of like fringy in a way. So it surprises me when people come to us and they're like, "Oh, we like your record." So it's like I just wonder. That's all.
I feel people now are reaching the age you probably were when you wrote the album, so it just connects with everyone.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Is there any goals you guys have for this year in terms of music? Do you guys have anything else you want to say? There's at least there's like 10 people talking in the chat. I don't know if you just say hi to them.
Thanks for tuning in.
So I think that's a good space to stop. And again, thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you both Robbie and Valerie for taking time out of their schedules to talk with us. So
Oh, gee, thank you so much, John and Jay, and it's you guys who just make us happy. Thank you.
Likewise.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
okay.
Thanks for the opportunity. It was really awesome.